You're on, Miss McCarty.
All righty. So good morning, everyone. We're talking this morning about keeping our acceptance level higher than our expectations level. And, that's pretty much what is the sort of the motto for staying sober. Is any form of addict, our expectations can really get us in trouble. Particularly when we expect something from other people that they don't do and they let us down. And, we're all fallible human beings. The one thing that we can count on with each other is human beings, we're going to let each other down. We do let each other down. We don't intend to at times. I mean, it's not intentional, and we let ourselves down. And so, I want to start off talking about expectations. And some of you that have been around the program for a while have probably heard this. It's expectations are premeditated resentments. When you get into your head about expecting someone to do something or a situation to be just the way it is, and then it doesn't turn out like you want it to, then we can get a resentment over it. So having really unrealistic expectations, particularly, for ourselves and for others, but particularly for others, can bring up anger and resentment. And we know as addicts, resentment is the number one offender. We must absolutely guard against resentment at all costs, because what it does, it'll take us back to the substance. Because when we get mad, usually when we have a resentment, if somebody has said something to us and we get angry, and then we might go blow up at them, so not only do we have a resentment towards someone else, now we've got a self-resentment going. We're mad at ourselves for blowing up and thinking, why did I do that? And then we'll think about it a little longer, and we get thinking, well, people have been letting me down forever, and we go from self-resentment to self-pity, which is a dangerous place for an addict of any sort to get in, too, because when we feel sorry for ourselves, bless our hearts, the way to ease the pain of that is to use a substance. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about having realistic expectations, like I said, can cripple ourselves and our ability to make healthy decisions. And it can affect our self-esteem and and can create mental health problems like anxiety and depression. We see it all the time. And on the flip side of that, we need to have some healthy expectations. Think about it, some healthy expectations. And what they are is being respectful to others and being, expecting people to be respectful to us. Now, we may not get that back, but, other expectations, healthy expectations, are to be fair with other people and to be compassionate with other people and ourselves. And those are expectations that when we start looking for mates, or when we have friends that we're looking, we have friends, there's some simple expectations about, we need to be treated with kindness, dignity, and respect. And we need to treat other people that way. Now, are we going to always get it? No. I've worked with a lot of women, particularly, that come out of domestic violence. Usually when they are living in domestic violence, a lot of times they had that in childhood. They either witnessed it in childhood, or they were abused themselves. And so when you have been abused yourself, abnormal becomes normal. And so it's really hard to work with survivors of domestic abuse, because on a certain level, it's like their way of getting attention. Now, as sick as that sounds, that's what I'm talking. And so they began to expect bad behavior from other people, particularly who they're married to. And as much as they don't like it, it's their form of getting attention, calling attention to themselves. So when we're working with abuse survivors or working with anyone, one of the things is they must work on learning to love and accept themselves first, and have some realistic expectations about their behavior. Myself, my father was a rager, and I became a rager. It was almost expected of me. It's like I carried on the family torch, And so I used that, and it's almost like I wanted, I thought all men were violent. And so I tried my best to make my husband violent. Well, he was gentle. He was a gentle man until I kept on and on and on and on. And then he'd finally get angry. But it took a lot of effort to do that on my part. And so my expectation was to be in a relationship where I was not treated well. And so what I did is I would treat the other person bad. So anyway, I'm talking about mental health here, a lot of, unhealthy behavior. So healthy expectations are learning to be respectful to ourselves and to others. And that means anywhere. I am burdened this morning, as probably every one of y'all are. I don't listen to a lot of news, but I don't keep my head in the sand. I know what's going on in Ukraine and in our world. I'm in Ukraine and our world, and it saddens me. It really burdens me. And that I can't stay there, and I can't get into a lot of expectations about what this country ought to do and that country ought to do and we ought to do, because I know nothing about it. So what I need to do is just pray, and we all need to do that. Okay, so it is okay to have some healthy expectations, but unhealthy expectations are expecting people to do for us what we can do for ourselves. It's just putting unrealistic expectations on other people. And I'm sad to say I did that with my children, because I can defend myself till hell freezes over, but I still had a lot of unrealistic expectations toward my children. I wanted them to have a better life than I did, and they did. My husband and I created a safe place for them to live in. Now, that's a healthy expectation, is to have a healthy place to grow up in. We had a home, and it was a clean home, and they had good food, and they went to school, and they were, had a routine, all the things that I read in those books that children needed, and to be a good parent, we needed to provide. But what I didn't read in there was what I put on my children, and that is those unrealistic expectations. I wanted them to be better than I was. I want them to be good in everything. And I learned before they got grown. I really did learn a lot, because I got into Al-Anon when my youngest daughter was a bed baby. Thank God that I did. That was in October of 1968. And so I still had those expectations for years with my children, particularly one daughter. I have my oldest daughter was and is very smart, very intelligent. When she was in kindergarten, they called me in one day and they said, your child is very smart and she's wasting her time in kindergarten. We want to promote her to the first grade. And a proud parent, I was just so excited. And I allowed her to be promoted. That was not a good thing, because it put her in a position of being younger than her classmates, although she was smart. And I'm not saying she was the smartest kid ever, but she was right up there with them. She was very intelligent. And so therefore, I expected more out of her. Now, all of the kids were smart, every one of them, but somehow or other, I put more pressure on my oldest daughter than I did my other children. In fact, if you were to look, if she, I had a bathing suit on and you could see her, you could probably see my handprint still on her back where I pushed her. I'm not proud of that. But I pushed her out of my expectations of what she could do, not her expectations, my expectations. And she succeeded. She succeeded far beyond what I expected. So that is something that parents can do, putting unrealistic expectations on their children or on their spouses or anyone. So, but I do want to talk about, say that for a few minutes, that we must have some healthy expectations, or we will continue, if we're in a bad situation, we'll continue to accept unacceptable behavior. And so there's a fine line there. So I want to talk about how to keep our acceptance level higher than our expectations. And what acceptance is simply being with what is seeing what the situation is and being with that situation exactly the way it is. We don't have to like it. We don't have to buy into it. We don't have to change it, nothing. But acceptance is accepting it, the situation, just the way it is. This is what it is. And I know that, another personal illustration is somehow I could accept my mother's alcoholism because, coupled with being an alcoholic, my mother was sick all the time. So I excused her. I thought her sickness was due, that she drank to, and I was pretty smart to figure that out as a kid. I figured out that she took prescription drugs and alcohol to ease the pain of her physical problems. It was not physical, it was more her emotional problems. So I figured that out. And I always gave my mother a hall pass. I took care of her. And I dearly loved and adored my mother, and I took, too much care of her, over cared for her until I got into Al-Anon and learned about codependency. And, the AAs in my life would say, you are keeping your mother and your husband 1 inch away from recovery. About the time they decide they want help, you run in and rescue them. But the problem that I had I had a big problem accepting my husband's alcoholism because he was a different kind of alcoholic than my mother was. I thought all alcoholics laid on the couch and drank and couldn't work and all that. But he was a functioning alcoholic, and he could get up and go to work. And, once he got drunk, we may not see him for 3 or 4 days. But it took me a long time to accept his alcoholism, because I thought it was directed at me, and that if I'd kept the house cleaner, if I'd lose the weight, if I'd do this, if do that, and do something else, and I cleaned that house till the floors were almost bare. I was all of those things, and it didn't matter what I did. What I didn't know, and this is about acceptance, we need to educate ourselves about whatever's before us that we're, looking at accepting. And I did not know what the disease of alcoholism was. I didn't know it was a disease. I thought it was a sin, because I went to that Southern Baptist church and they said it was. They told us it was a sin. And my husband and I would sit on that third pew on the left-hand side of Wiley Baptist Church for 25 years, and we heard the same thing. Drinking alcohol is a sin. And in that church, I don't know about others, but every quarter we took a covenant with the church that we would not let any alcohol cross these lips. And I felt so guilty because my husband was letting it slip by his lips. I took on the guilt of his alcoholism, his drinking, because I did not know what alcoholism was. So I wouldn't accept it. I would not accept his unacceptable behavior. When he would come in drunk, I'd beat him up. I'm not proud of that. I could not accept the unacceptable behavior that came from his alcoholism. I couldn't, until I understood and learned that I was dealing with a disease called alcoholism. And it wasn't alcoholism. Addicts, we don't get instantly well when we stop a substance, whether it's eating disorders or alcoholism, what it is, whatever it is. But through education in the Al-Anon family group, I learned that my husband and my mother and my daughter, people around me, a lot of, sometimes I used to think I was a carrier of the disease of alcoholism because it was like everybody around me was alcoholic. But anyway, until I could accept and educate myself about the disease of alcoholism, I couldn't accept it. And once I realized what it was, that it was a disease, I totally accepted the disease. I'd like to tell you, I totally accepted the bad behavior all the time. I would have slips. I don't think we're going to have pure acceptance all the time. But I just had to educate myself that it was a disease and he wasn't acting out toward me. And when I could accept that and I could love him where he was, I remember the very day that my action changed, that my behavior changed. And I've been working with the sponsor and talking about it and talking and writing and acceptance is a verb. It's an action word. Acceptance is an action word. And I could tell you all about acceptance and all from, reading and all. I can give you the definition, but I couldn't practice it with my husband and his alcoholism. And so he was gone. They were opening the store down at another town and they were gone 3 or 4 days, my son and stepson and all of them. Anyway, they partied, big party down there. And I was supposed to go and be a hostess. And deep down in my gut, I didn't want to do that. I knew what it was I'd be going into. They'd all be drinking. And then more than likely, I'd get my feelings hurt or get mad. Anyway, I made a decision not to go. And I talked to my sponsor about it. And she worked with me about perhaps changing my behavior when he came home. And so I prayed about that for that 3 or 4 days that he was gone and talked and wrote and all. And so when he came home and, he came home very skittish, just scared to death, still had alcohol on his breath, but you could tell he was scared because I would beat him up. I'd treat him horrible. And I'm not proud of that. But I remember that day I did it different. I walked up to him and I put my arms around him, which that scared him to death. He thought I was going to hit him, but I put my arms around him and I looked him in the eyes and I told him, I said, honey, I know you have a disease called alcoholism. And I know that you're not drinking to get even with me or any of that. I said, I know that you have the disease of alcoholism. And I love you. I love and I care about you. And I just hugged him. And that's all I said. And he stood there stunned. But I started doing that. And those bouts of being gone, kind of grew farther apart. He didn't sober up right at first. I mean, he didn't. It was probably 2 or 3 years after that. But I gave up on trying to get him sober. I accepted him as the way he was. It totally accepted the way that he was. And I accepted that he might die of the disease of alcoholism. But I also accepted that I loved the man, whether he had a disease or not. And I let him know that I accept his unacceptable behavior. No, when I knew that the kids were playing a sports event, and if I realized that he'd been drinking and it was out of town and we were already there, I would request that he not drive to the town where the game was, because I knew, he's putting his life and other people's life in jeopardy. And besides that, I knew he would get there and make an ass out of himself. And so Those are expectations that came true many times, but I would do it in a loving way. I would just say, honey, just stay home and you can go to a game in town. But I knew that it was a disease. So acceptance, I had to accept that my loved ones had a disease and they wasn't acting out at me. So I want to say that acceptance is powerful. When you really accept, and it's only until we accept a problem exactly the way it is that there's going to be any opening to create a solution. There's no opening to create a solution because all we're doing is we're thinking about the problem. And once we can accept the situation being the way it is right now, it may not change right now, but it's going to create an opening for answers to come our way. But as long as we're threatening, I could get a problem and it would be like, that's all I'd focus on is the problem. And it's like I would nail one foot to the floor and I'd run around in circles, run around in circles, run around in circles. That's how I solved problems, just run around in circles until I learned through the program about what acceptance was and to accept the problem the way it is right now before we can ever even attempt to solve it. It doesn't mean that we have to like it. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have maybe some feelings about it or some heartache. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that acceptance is what it is. It's a journey toward healing the problem. So I want to tell you a little bit too about when we figure out that the problem is what it is and accepting and acknowledging and the recognition, it does not, and by the way, accepting a problem or a situation like it is does not require an opinion. We don't have to have an opinion about it. We don't have to judge them about it. What we can't change, we must accept that it's exactly the way that it is right now. Okay, so in true acceptance is really rare. We can say that I accept so-and-so, but then in the back of our mind, we don't. I won't get into a lot of that, but I could give you many illustrations of where people say, oh, I accept so-and-so, I accept so-and-so, I accept. And then later you turn around and hear them criticizing or talking about someone. Anyway, all right. So to give you a personal example of acceptance, and that is my eating disorder. It took me years to truly accept that. I mean, I knew from age 4 that I had a problem with overeating, and it manifested itself in massive weight gain, and it kept manifesting itself up to 287 pounds. And I'd try every diet and I'd lose weight and gain it, lose weight and gain it. I was aware. I knew what I was doing with the food, and then picked up bulimia, and I knew what I was doing with bulimia. I knew it. For 42 years, I knew it. And, in 1972, I found my way to Overeaters Anonymous. There was an ad that came out in our local paper that about an 08 meeting started. And, the woman, her husband was here at Dice Air Base. We got a lot of good information brought to West Texas through our people from Dice Air Base. But anyway, she'd been in OA in another city, I think out in California, and she started an OA meeting. So I started in 1972, and I went, and I went. And I went 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 and I went. And I got active. And I would, times I would say I was abstinent, and I would lie about it, or I would withhold information. I could not accept that I had a disease. I couldn't. I would say that I had, but when we know that we've accepted something, I believe we take action. And it took for me, and it's not true for everybody, It took me getting so ill, sick with bulimia, that I had to go to treatment. And when I got to treatment, and when I detoxed from the food, particularly sugar and high carbs, and the bulimia, I got so deathly ill, that 5 days later, 5 days, and people, no one can tell me that compulsive overeating and eating disorders aren't diseases. I don't care how many credentials they have behind their name. What I say is they don't have the disease if they can tell you that it's not a disease, that it's just a habit, a bad habit that you formed. On the 5th day, I've gone through that detox and I was sick. And what I had was a complete psychic change. Like they talk about in the big book, I had a spiritual experience, and it was like that. And when I came out of that, I knew I was going to be all right. I didn't know what it would all look like, but I knew I was going to be okay. I knew. And at that moment, I accepted that I had a disease. Now, have I treated it perfect 100% every day, every minute for the last 36 years? No, I haven't. I don't know any of us that's, treated completely perfect. I don't know. But I'll tell you what has happened in my life through working a good program day in and day out is that God has removed that mental obsession. And it's been removed for different things. But at that moment, I knew I was going to be all right. And what has happened in the last 36 years, that food has taken its proper place in my life. Food's food. It's not, it is, I get hungry, I eat. I get hungry for something special, I'll eat it. If food does not drive me today. And it drove me all the time, and my weight. And I'll tell you, I still have an eating disorder. Part of that, and I'm in good recovery, but how I do know that I have an eating disorder is when I asked my little friend, when Misty here, when we're out shopping, when I asked the question, I know I'm acting out of my eating disorder brain. I'll ask her, does this make me look fat? That will be my question. Not, is this a pretty dress? Does the color look good on me? How does it hang? The question is, does it make me look fat? That's eating disorder talk. That is eating disorder talk. So we're not looking for perfection here, folks. We're looking for progress. And I've had lots of progress by the grace of God and a lot of help that I'm to be in recovery today. But I'm telling you, until I could accept that I had a deadly disease that was killing me, I couldn't recover. And I had tried everything, even Overeaters Anonymous, for years, from 72 to 50 to 86. 85. And I could not surrender. I could admit it, but I couldn't surrender and couldn't accept it. Okay, so I did all of that and talked about all of that. And I knew, because I do believe so much in the 12-step process, I knew on that 5th day in California in treatment, I knew that I must surrender my eating disorder to the God of my understanding, or that I was going to die from it. And that was my first realization of how serious, of what a disease that I had, and how serious I was. How bad I was. That I was absolutely killing myself, particularly with the bulimia. With any eating disorder, it is a death sentence if we continue on the path. Okay, so there's a lot of talk around the therapy field today about acceptance. And therapists are looking at how important it is for clients to have acceptance of their loved ones, of their mental illness. And there is a movement, it's a therapeutic intervention. It's called ACI, it's called acceptance, commitment, and anyway, I can't remember all of it. ACI, the only reason I'm bringing that up is that it is an important part of mental health. It's an important part in our life to learn to accept the things we cannot change. And then when I was looking up some things, and I thought it was very interesting, the therapist that really started that movement, acceptance, ACI, I can't remember what it stands for, acceptance, commitment, and something else. And what she did is she quoted acceptance out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That is the best quote anywhere in the world on acceptance, anywhere. And it is so good. Used to it was on page 449. I don't like change of any kind, and I don't like this new big book because it has different numbers. My sponsor, I'd call her, and she was very gentle and kind and sweet. And I just keep on and on and on and on and on. And she'd finally say, go read page 449, 449. That's all we heard, 449 page 4. And now it's not 449, it's 417. And I want to read it. And I know that all of you know it because I know who most of you are up here. But it bears to be read and repeated and repeated. And like I said, I think it's so interesting that the professionals are now using this in therapy because there's so much in this book that could be used for in the therapy setting. But this book is for people who, a lot of people need this information, but it's only for those who want it. And usually those of us who want it, we don't want it till we get real sick. And when we get real sick, then we want it and then we follow directions. But I want you to read you because I love this passage and I know y'all do too. On page 417, and acceptance is the answer to all my problems. This little man, he was a doctor, and they used to call this chapter the Doctor Alcoholic Addict. But around the rooms, we always called it the marriage, the book on the chapter on marriage. It was, if you want to look at your marriage and get some answers, read this chapter. Now it's called Acceptance Was the Answer. But anyway, I want to read you what he wrote. And I had the privilege of meeting him many, many years ago at a conference. But anyway, and acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact in my life unacceptable to me, and I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, or thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Think about that. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. I'm human. Y'all are human. We're all, and there's times I question God's, wisdom. I want to say, God, are you sure you don't have me mixed up with someone else, but it's nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. And until I could accept, this is what he said, my alcoholism. And for me, until I could accept my eating disorder, I could not stay sober. And unless I accept life completely on life's terms, and until I could accept life on life's terms, I cannot be happy. Acceptance equals happiness. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as what needs to be changed in me and in my attitude. And I want to go over here and read just a little bit on the next page. And he said, and acceptance has been the answer to my marital problems. It's as though AA has given me a new pair of glasses. Max, I love that name. His wife's name was Max. And I had been married then for over 35 years. They're both gone now. Prior to our marriage, when she was a shy, scrawny adolescent, I was able to see things in her that others couldn't necessarily see. Things like beauty and charm and gaiety, a gift for being easy to talk to, a sense of humor, and many other fine qualities. It was as if I had if It was as if I had, rather than a Midas touch, which turned everything to gold, a magnifying mind that magnified whatever it focused on. Over the years, as I thought about Max, her good qualities grew and grew, and we married. All of these qualities became more and more apparent to me, and we were happy and happier. And then I drank more and more. The alcohol seemed to affect my vision. Instead of continuing to see what was good about my wife, I began to see her defects. The more I focused my mind on her defects, the more they grew and multiplied. Every defect I pointed out to her became greater and greater. Each time I told her she was a nothing, she receded a little more into nowhere. And the more I drank, and the more she wilted. Then one day in AA, I was told that I had the lenses in my glasses backwards. The courage to change in the serenity prayer meant not that I should change my marriage, but rather I should change myself and learn to accept my spouse exactly like she was. Today, through AA, has given me a new pair of glasses. I can again focus on my wife's good qualities and watch them grow and grow. All righty, so that's what I have about acceptance. And, it's, I guess that's it, what I have about acceptance. When we are looking at people and seeing their defects of character, I know all of y'all have seen this, heard this. If we don't have those defects in us, either we have them now in the present, or we work through them, or we're getting ready to have them, we can't see those defects in another person. When we can see other people, how bad, awful, and wrong they are, what we're doing is we're pointing those fingers back at us. So, like the book says, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today, all of my affairs. So that's what I have on expectations. I do think it's healthy to have some healthy expectations. I think it's healthy to expect to be in relationships with people who are fair and courteous, and and that we can give each other love and positive regard. Are we going to do it all the time? No. So when we don't, we hope that those around us will accept us where we are, and then we can accept those people that we love where they are today, and that maybe they're just having a bad day. So we've got some old timers on here, some newcomers. We've got some seasoned people in here that have worked the program many years. And so who would like to speak first on keeping our acceptance level higher than our expectations?
Sally?
For surrendering, I know that when I went to do my first 42 days at Shades, it wasn't until the very end that I really completely, totally surrendered. And it was like, and Tennie will say that it was like I took like it was an 89 turn switch around in me. And so I really struggled, because I had the little inner child in me, the little my good Sally and then my bad Sally's, saying that, you don't need to do this, that, and the other. But when I finally surrendered, it was like I finally started to be able to really work on recovery and work on my problems and issues. And so I thank Tennie and Shades for that. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Sally. All righty, Miss Taylor.
Good morning. Thank you for the
morning
talk, Tennie. I got to thinking about, I love the inventory process. I didn't for a long time, but I love it today because it's really just like raw qualitative data about my situation in my life. And when I have the information and data, I can assess it and find patterns and trends that help me make better decisions moving forward. And I noticed on my last like really big fourth step, there was so much selfishness that came up. So my sponsor and I drilled down to it. And basically, most of the time it came down to me being upset that people weren't acting the way I thought they should or doing the things I thought they should do. And that's selfish. But it's also, shows the need for more acceptance. And was talking with my sponsor a couple of weeks ago. I called her with, the same old inventory about my ex-husband. He had done something again and it brought stuff up. And I was like, I know, like, you've heard this a million times. And she's like, okay, yeah, I have. And like, you can keep calling with it, but like, what are you willing to do about it? And I said, well, I can't change him. And she's like, exactly. So what can you change about yourself? And I was like, well, it's not okay that he lies. And she said, you know who he is. He's given you the information. So like, why are you expecting him to act differently than what he's shown you over and over? Like, yes, like we can say, the problem is this, yes, he shouldn't do that. That's taking his inventory. We don't do that today. So like, what about him can you accept and like get some serenity, and not expect things out of him that he's just not capable of giving at this point. And, I had to sit on that for a few days because I was still like, no, I'm right. He shouldn't be doing that. But, at the end of the day, he's not walking around, all agitated about what he's doing. I am. And, and it's up to me to say like, okay, you're a sick person. I wouldn't treat a sick person that way. Like I expect that out of you until you show me differently. And it doesn't mean I have to co-sign it and say that it's all right. I just don't have to let it disturb me and throw me off. And, that's still something I'm practicing. But when she said that to me, I was like, oh man, you're right. Like, it seems unfair, but I'm going to have to be the one to change. And, I've been able to just like, let some things go lately that I haven't been able to let go of. And, the whole time, ever. And, I was thinking about, you were talking about acceptance about your eating disorder. And, I was in I've been in AA for 3.5 years and I almost have a year of sobriety. So there was some struggles for a while. And so much of it was, me saying like, I can figure this out. I can outthink this. Like, yes, maybe it's a disease for other people, but like if I study the book more, if I do that, it was just like, I can outthink this. And, finally coming to Shades and being like, okay, like I give, like somebody else tell me what to do. And, today it's like, and I've been grateful to never kind of pull back that acceptance of my alcoholism. It is what it is. And I know that to my core, and there's so much freedom and peace in that, because I do the legwork, but my higher power, is the one keeping me sober day in and day out. So, acceptance is huge. And I think it'll probably be a lifetime process to get there, but it's some really good stuff when there's moments of it. So that's it.
So you started talking about that you were going to mention something about your eating disorder.
Oh, no, I was talking about your eating disorder, how you said that, like your acceptance of your eating disorder.
So have you accepted your eating disorder?
I'm working on it. I take that back, come and go, but got a good therapist. So
good. You're in good hands. That's right. I just had to ask. I mean, all right. Okay, Jay.
Hi, Tennie. Hi, Tennie.
Hi, Jay. Good morning.
Good morning. It took me a long time to accept the life and dysfunction of my family with my mother and my stepfather. And as I got older, I developed unhealthy behaviors by resenting my mother and my stepfather. And I was determined to help my mother and my siblings any way that I could to stop the abuse, but it was through unhealthy thoughts. And I developed depression and anger at a young age. And my expectations of my mother was, she knew what the problem was, and she knew the solution. And I clearly knew the solution even as a child. And my expectations of her were to simply get rid of the problem. And when those expectations weren't met, I put it upon myself as my own expectation to get rid of the problem. I became her rescuer and for myself and my siblings. And for years, I had the unhealthy thoughts of harming this man, getting rid of him any way that I could. And I wanted to get rid of him permanently because I didn't want to risk the chance of him coming back. So I lived with this idea and these thoughts for years. And my depression increased yearly because I couldn't live up to that expectation of myself because I'm not that kind of person. When you talked about this, I'm learning here at Shades that I can't be responsible for what my mother has been through. And I understand more about what she's been through. And I understand that she was a victim and she was abused and she was held a hostage to her husband and she was rendered helpless to help her children and herself. So by understanding that, I can be more willing and open to acceptance to my mother and let go of some of the resentments, even towards my stepfather, as much as I hated him, to even pray for him and accept the responsibility that I don't have to rescue anybody. That is not my responsibility. And it wasn't my responsibility as a child. And in doing so, I can relieve myself of that duty and help myself with healthy thoughts and healthy expectations to recover.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Thanks, Jay. That's
you.
wonderful. Thank you. If you've got that, that's been worth the price of the ticket to get you to Shades. Good for you. I was just going to call on her. Now her name's there. Ann, share with us. Ann, word.
My name is Ann, and I'm a compulsive overeater and a restrictor, compulsive restrictor. I just went through a major life change. I moved into senior living. And there's a line in the big book, and I can't remember if it's an unrealistic demand for attention and affection, but it's some line like that. And I had such unrealistic expectations. I thought I was going to move in here and I was going to be the belle of the ball, and I was going to have this just fun. We're going to play games. It was like high school all over again. And especially in the dining room of all places, just cliques, no place to sit. Nobody wanted to hang out with me. So I was miserable. I was crying. I was eating in my room. I was doing all kinds of things but I was making it about them, how they were not welcoming me, and they were all clicked up, and they were this, and they were shallow, and they were superficial, and they didn't want to talk about anything that meant anything. And then I realized that I had unrealistic expectations. And once I realized that, and anyway, what's different about living in an apartment and senior living? And it's living in an apartment. It's me. It's me with me. So once I got it, then I could settle down and see what was going to happen, like life is. So, but that line, this unrealistic demand, and I don't think that's the right word, but anyway, it's a demand that we have from our childhood of being deprived for all this attention and affection that I think I deserve. And I'm just so glad to be back in recovery, back in these rooms. I started back in OA, January 2nd. I've almost made 90 and 90. And I have done a step a week, except took 2 weeks for my 4th step. And I'm taking 2 weeks for my 10th step because I'm just not quite sure I'm going to do it every single night, but I know it would benefit me if I do. So I'm really glad to see your faces and to be back in the room.
Oh, it's good to see you. Hope you're on every Wednesday, and we're going to have you out here one of these days when our remodeling is finished. We're
Love
looking
to.
forward. All righty, love you, Ann. Okay, who's next? Emma. Emma, so good to see you. She's
You.
the good morning.
Good morning. So acceptance was always something that I really struggled with. Well, maybe acceptance and expectations both, actually. I found that I had a lot of issues with that in my friendships. I was always disappointed in my friends. I was always finding that that was never enough. You know, if you've seen The Greatest Showman, one of my assignments at Shades was to do a dance, because I'm a dancer, to the song Never Enough. And it never clicked to me that I was never enough for myself and other people were never enough for me, because I set my standards and my expectations so high of myself and other people that no one would ever be able to meet it. So I was always disappointed. And I found that after I let go of all expectations, that's something that I really got out of my last trip to Shades, is just letting go of expectations. And it causes me to have a lot less anxiety. I don't worry about something so much anymore until it's actually happening. And I have very, very chronic anxiety. I get a panic attack probably once a week and I end up on the floor crying, which is not fun. But letting go of expectations and just accepting things the way life gives them to me, it says doing life on life's terms, right? I think that's what acceptance and letting go of expectations is all about. And it makes life so much better. And one thing that, like, I'm getting ready to go to University of Kentucky in the fall. So one big part of that is finding a roommate. And that process is full of rejection. And every time you get rejected, it's like beat down, beat down, beat down. So I set myself up this time, as opposed to last time, where I knew that I'm accepting that because I'm getting rejected by this person, we weren't meant to be as roommates. There's going to be someone better, and it would have been maybe not good. And it's kind of the universe and God telling me, like, slow down, trust me, we're going to get through this. So it's just letting go of expectations and just accepting life. I've become a much happier, calmer, and just kind of chill person. So I really appreciated this topic.
Thank you, Emma. And, you know, I always look at, well, you're practicing, you're just practicing talking with it, you know, with, and y'all are just practicing together. And like you said, God already has someone picked out. You're just practicing talking to these other girls and figuring out, and, you know, and that's good. That's a good way to grow up. So good to see you, Emma. I'm proud of you. Okay, Miss Wanda, I was getting ready to call on Wanda, and there she's got her name down. All right, Wanda. Wanda?
Yes.
Okay, there she is. All righty.
Okay. Yes, here I am. Okay.
There you are.
It's good to be here. And Tennie, this is the topic. I mean, it's a great topic. It's so good for any stage of recovery, because I was just thinking about, as you were talking, all about the acceptance and the chapter in the big book. And I'm so glad you read that part about acceptance. And yes, I've read it on myself, and I've read it for other people. And you know, I was told early on, because I had accepted, or thought I had accepted, my eating disorder, that maybe there would be other things in my life I would need to accept. I mean, it was like, at first I thought, well, good, I've done that chapter. I've accepted that I have a disease. And, you know, that was a big thing. And then I got recovery, abstinence, and after a few years of really good abstinence, that wasn't enough for me. I was needing other things to accept. And so I found out when I came to treatment that I was really bad codependent and had to accept that. And I didn't know what that meant. I still thought it was about other people, but I learned it and learned my boundaries and was happy about that. But going on through my life at this stage of my life, it's totally different from the early stages of my recovery. And it's totally different from even those mid ages of recovery, where I could keep putting one foot in front of another and knowing that I was on the right track and everything was going to be all right, and accepting that God's will is being done in my life. But at this stage of my recovery, it's a little bit more like, for me, it's like, where do I go now? What do I do now? What's left for me to do? And I have to accept that I don't know. I mean, that's been hard. As a widow, I've had people from time to time, ask me, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to move? What are you going to do? Are you going to, where one of your kids is, or what? They just, those questions are being asked, of course. And the fact that I have to say, I don't know, it feels like I haven't accepted that I don't know. And that's been kind of hard for me to accept that I and have to really live one day at a time. That's what it boils down to right now. One of my favorite things in the big book is what you read about: nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. And so I have to ask myself, what does that leave out? Nothing happens. Any of this, sitting here at this table with talking on, nothing happens by mistake. And I've had to talk to my sponsor, and she just keeps telling me, well, you're okay where you are right now. And I remember you saying that so many times in treatment. Well, what is so wrong with right now? And I have to keep telling myself, it's good right now. Everything's good right now, but I want to know what's going to happen, But I am in that process, and it is a process, but it is being accepted. I found out this morning, I was in a meeting with some other old timers, and I found out how happy I am to be called an old timer in this program. There's nothing like it, to be an old timer with some old timers sitting around talking about how it used to be way back in when, and I love it. And I'm now accepting where I am today, which is that I don't know where I am, so in my life. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Wanda. Yeah, it's, in my own life, I'm coming to the place that I'm having to accept I can't do all the things that I used to do. I can still do pretty much what I want to do. I just can't do it as long. I get tired, and age has never been a problem. It's just been a number on the calendar. But my next one is kind of, I haven't quite accepted it yet. My friend Ann and I both are coming up on the same number, I think. She may not want to tell her age, so I won't tell mine, because I just said we're the same age. But it is a number that's kind of bothered me. But anyway, by the time it gets December rolls around, I will have been in a place of acceptance. It just kind of shocks me that, oh my God, I can't believe I am, well, I'll just go ahead and say it, that I'm almost 80 years old. And I'm still dyeing my hair. What about that? Anyway, maybe one of these days I'll give that up, but not today. Okay, so TJ, talk to us about acceptance.
I can't even compete. I just have one short thing I wanted to say, that it's so fun. It's like having a toddler that every day they realize things and learn things and do things. And ever since, it's been 8-9 months since I was at Shades, it's like every day the pieces keep coming together and you keep going, that's what they were talking about. Yeah. And the thing today, the aha, was that the acceptance, learning the acceptance is the key to not being codependent. You know, if I accept the fact that that's how they are and I'm not going to make them any, then I don't have to hover and keep trying to make it better or fix it or accommodate or whatever. And that the expectation, if you have a proper expectation, then you don't need to go in there and be codependent and manage it. And so
That's right.
I love that. I love that it just keeps coming together.
Yeah. Thank you, TJ. And that's what happens in recovery. It's like those aha moments. Yeah. I love early recovery, and a lot of people do. And I think that's one thing that causes relapse, if they like the eagerness, the excitement of early recovery, but we don't ever have to relapse. You don't have to, and enjoy your early recovery and that excitement. Don't lose that excitement. I don't think I've ever lost the excitement of recovery from my eating disorder. I just get excited every day and thank God for it. Thank you, TJ. Nina. Where's Nina? Nita.
She's up there on the left hand.
Okay, Nita. Oh, yeah, my friend from Alexandra. Yes, Nita. Can you unmute?
Nita, you need to unmute.
Okay,
There you go.
now, y'all know I'm not techie at all. Anyway,
Okay.
I had something to say, but now so many other people had really good things to say, and I'm overwhelmed. But I wanted to thank you for this. I really, really needed it with my son and my relationship with my son. And then I can relate with Ann that I also have moved to some senior apartments, and much the same thing happened. So I'm going to do my best. I'm about to cry. Y'all know I'm a crybaby. My best to accept them in their place in my life and go on. It's a beautiful apartment, lovely building, all that good stuff. The acceptance has been hard with the eating disorder. It's been very difficult to say that I have a disease and that it's overeating. That still doesn't make a lot of sense to me, though it's been 3 months that I've been working the program, and made that on the 28th. I'm very proud to say that. I have lost 30 pounds, about 30
Good for
pounds.
you. Woo. Good for you.
Thank you. I have 100 to go.
That's all right.
And working those steps. My
Good.
little sponsor is down with her health right now, but I've been doing what I could do on my own and watching y'all and things like that. I can also relate to the young lady that's about to go to school and the panic attacks. Today has been, or this week has been very hard with a bad panic attack. But when I first started, Paul, you remember Paul? He kept on and on and on about acceptance, and I kept saying, Paul, I do not understand. And we got in a screaming match, and his wife got mad. Karen got mad. But anyway, it's making sense. What you said today is making sense what Paul said. So I'm going to take this all to heart. I am taking all to heart. Can y'all still hear me? There's a phone call and then I'm on the phone.
Thank you. It's good to hear from you. Love you.
Love you.
Bye-bye. Keep on the path.
Get
Miss
ready to skip right
Jackie,
now.
what have you got for us?
Hey there, Tennie.
Good to see you.
Great. Nice to see you. Great topic. The thing that came to mind with me is the unrealistic expectations of others. I pulled it out because I thought it was so funny. My sponsor in Al-Anon said in your 4th step, she had me, because her sponsor did it with her, add expectations. So that she had an entire column. Where was I to blame, my part? And it was an expectations column. And wouldn't you know, every single one of those in mine, now this one's a blank one that I share with my sponsees now, every single one of them had expectations marked when I was going through my 4th step. And I'm a black and white kind of person. Sometimes you got to show me things, and I learned so much from that. And so I've carried it on to my sponsees. And I do think that that's a tool that I didn't even know was out there, because I was doing it to myself. I had all these expectations of others. They were never going to meet all the things I thought they, should or could or whatever do. And at the end of the day, I wasn't accepting them for where they were and trying to make things different than what they were by my fixed, managing, controlling. So when it comes to the acceptance level of expecting others of where they're at, I think that really helped me look and view people differently, because then I no longer looked at them being the problem, but myself. And that really helped turn, that was just that one tool she gave me, my sponsor did, on those expectations, really helped me see myself in a different light and let me see that I was the problem and not them. And that really, really helped me. And then the other part is accepting people where they're at. Is I now look at them with more compassion versus judgment, because they're, I can see they're active in their disease or they're doing things, I can look at it and now, instead of getting angry or upset, I just turn them over to God and pray for them. Yeah. And so that's really helped me with my recovery. And that's helped me accept life on life terms and people on people's terms. And I feel like that little tool has really helped me. So I just wanted to share that little nugget. Thank you for the topic today.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, there is, I lost my train of thought, which is part of getting almost that 80 age, but that's all right. It probably wasn't important anyway. All righty. So Miss Sherry, what do you have for us today? Sherry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I had an aha moment with you talking.
Good.
I know. Well, I now know why it's been hard for me for acceptance with my family where they're at, because I've had trouble accepting myself where I'm at and accepting my eating disorder. Because when I was shopping around for a therapist, I had one tell me, "Oh, it's not an addiction, it's just a problem." Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, maybe I don't have to do the 12 steps for that addiction. But I know I do. But like I said, because especially when you said, how long did you say it took you to accept your eating disorder? You said earlier how long it took you?
Until 1985, for 36 years. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, it was in 85 when I accepted.
So I'm right on track?
Yes, you're right on time. You're not too early, not too late. You're right on time. Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you. Good to see you, Sherry. Love you.
Good to see you.
Okay. Yeah. So that is our time for today. Next week, we're going to be talking. We're going to call it Beautifully Broken. There's some of us, anyway, Beautifully Broken is the title, embracing our pain and the opportunities for growth. Pain is the best motivator that there is. And so we're going to talk about how pain can get us from the hurt, from the pain of the brokenness into the solution and growth. So have a great week, and we will see y'all next Wednesday. Good to see everybody.
Thank y'all.
Be blessed.
Have a great day.
Tennie.